Hello, folks, and welcome. My name is Doug Patterson. I'm the senior minister at Smithfield United Church of Christ, and I am very, very happy and pleased that you've chosen to come by and join us for this Maundy Thursday service during Holy Week of 2020. May the peace of Christ be with you on this Maundy Thursday. I want to share with you the words from the gospel. These are the appointed words for Maundy Thursday. And it comes from the Gospel of John, chapter 13. I'm going to read the first 17 verses, and then I'm going to skip ahead and we will read verses 31 through 35. Hear now these words. It was now the day before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. He had always loved those in the world who were his own, and he loved them to the very end. Jesus and his disciples were at supper. The devil had already put into the heart of Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, the thought of betraying Jesus. And Jesus knew that the Father had given him complete power. He knew that he had come from God and was going to God. So he rose from the table, took off his outer garment, and tied a towel around his waist. Then he poured some water into a wash basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and dry them with the towel around his waist. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Are you going to wash my feet, Lord?" And Jesus answered him, "You do not understand now what I am doing, but you will understand later." Peter declared, "Never. At any time will you wash my feet." "If I do not wash your feet," Jesus answered, "you will no longer be my disciple." And Simon Peter answered, "Lord, do not wash only my feet then, but wash my hands and my head too." And Jesus said, "Those who have taken a bath are completely clean and do not have to wash themselves, except for their feet. All of you are clean, all except one." Jesus already knew who was going to betray him, and that is why he said, "All of you except one are clean." After Jesus had washed their feet, he put his outer garment back on and returned to his place at the table. "Do you understand what I have just done to you?" he asked. "You call me teacher and Lord, and it is right that you do so, because that is what I am. I, your Lord and teacher, have just washed your feet. You then should wash one another's feet. I have set an example for you, so that you will do just what I have done for you. I am telling you the truth. No slaves are greater than their master, and no messengers are greater than the one who sent them. Now that you know this truth, how happy you will be if you put it into practice." And after Judas had left, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man's glory is revealed. Now God's glory is revealed through him. And if God's glory is revealed through him, then God will reveal the glory of the Son of Man in himself, and he will do so at once. My children, I shall not be with you very much longer. You will look for me, but I tell you now what I told the Jewish authorities. You cannot go where I am going. And now I give you a new commandment. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. And if you have love for one another, then everyone will know that you are my disciples." May God add his blessing to the reading and the hearing of this portion of his holy word. This is the word of the Lord. I may have already said so in this video, but it bears repeating, and that is that the word Maundy, from Maundy Thursday, M-A-U-N-D-Y, comes from a Latin word mandatum or mandatum, and there's a couple different ways to pronounce that, which means mandate, means something you have to do. And at the end of the gospel lesson that I just read, Jesus gave a mandate to his disciples that you must love one another. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But first of all, let me back up to say that usually on Maundy Thursday, we'll get together and we'll celebrate the sacrament of Holy Communion with those present. And that is to think about Jesus' Last Supper with his disciples. But in this particular version of what happened that evening, it was all about two things. One, it was about the washing of feet. Now, this is significant because Jesus takes off his garment and he begins to wash the disciples' feet. In those days, people traveled by foot, and they didn't have the modern shoe wear that we have, and so the feet were considered to be the dirtiest part of the human body. When you went to visit somebody, the owner of the home, the host, would put out a bowl of water outside so that you would have something to wash your feet before you entered the home. If you were somebody who was a good friend, somebody that the host thought quite a bit about, he would send out a servant along with that bowl of water to wash feet. But if you were somebody who the host particularly loved and cared for, he would come out by himself, the owner of the home, and he would wash the guest's feet. This is the significance, you see, of this scripture lesson, certainly one of them, in that Jesus becomes the servant. He elevates the disciples' lives by washing their feet. Now, we haven't done foot washing services in our church, but I think if we were together tonight, it would be appropriate that we might have a hand washing service, don't you think? So anyhow, it's important, something to think about, the fact that we are called to be humble servants and to put others ahead of ourselves. The second thing and last thing I want to talk about here today or this evening is the mandate itself to love one another, to think of others before you think about yourself. I want to tell you a little story. The woman is dead now. She's been deceased for several years. Her name is Dorothy Keener. Some of you watching this are members of Smithfield, and a few of you may remember Dorothy. Dorothy lived over at the Roosevelt, the old Roosevelt Hotel, about 4 blocks away from the church. And she was much incapacitated by her bad legs, and so she used a walker, and it would take a long time for her to get over to the church for Sunday services, which she always attended. She was what we would call a little slow. She did have some mental impediments. She operated probably on about maybe a 12-year-old level, if that. She was missing front teeth. She never married. And she was extremely, extremely hard of hearing. There's a story told by Bob Foltz, who served 3 different interim pastorates at Smithfield. And this is before we got our new PA system, so there was an old PA system. And Bob said that in the middle of one of his sermons, Dorothy's earpiece was picking up, instead of his sermon, was picking up the service from First Lutheran Church up the street. And Bob said in the middle of his sermon, Dorothy stood up and started to sing. I can just see Dorothy doing that. Anyhow, what I want to tell you about Dorothy is this. One summer day, in the heat of the day, and it was in the mid-90s, I know because I checked. I was in my office, and one of our custodians said, "Here comes Dorothy Keener." And I came around the corner, and they were helping her up the steps because, as I said, she had a horrible time trying to get around. She was coming up the steps. They were helping her up. They helped her into the front door, and she was gasping for air. Her face was blood red. She was so hot. She was sweating profusely. And I was really concerned about her. And I got her into my office because it was cool in there and got her seated. And I said, Dorothy, what are you thinking? Coming over here, walking all that way to get here to the church in the middle of the day in the heat of the day, what were you thinking? And she said, I was going through some of the things at my apartment. And she said, I found this. And she opened up, there was a little pouch, you know, she had a walker and there was a pouch on the front. She reached into it and she pulled out a can of peas. And she said to me, she said, I brought this over because I thought maybe some of the poor people could use this. Maybe some of the poor people could use this. Now here's Dorothy Keener struggling to make her way over in the heat of the day. And she herself had absolutely nothing, but she was thinking about the poor people. I'm telling you right now, if there's a special section in heaven for saints, Dorothy Keener certainly lives there today. I think about that story and about her from time to time. And this is really what this is all about, isn't it? This mandate to love one another. Really what it's all about is to think about others before we think about ourselves, to think about their welfare. This is why, this is why I think that it's so important during this quarantine. That, to me, the most important thing is not to protect ourselves, although we all want to be protected. The most important thing to think about is this, that I don't want to infect somebody else. I may be an asymptomatic carrier, I don't know. I don't want to take that risk. I don't want to share this with anybody. I'm thinking about the welfare of other people. You should be too. So those two things. One, Jesus washing his disciples' feet because he elevated them and lowered himself. And two, the mandate to love one another. Maybe the poor people can use this. I'm so happy that we have a special musical offering this evening. Amy Stabnau, who is the soprano soloist at our church, has been singing solos for us at Maundy Thursday services for the last several years. She has a beautiful voice. She's chosen to sing a beautiful, beautiful song called The Robin and the Thorn. And it took me a while to understand the significance of this. I had to go through the lyrics, and I've printed them here. You'll see them in just a moment, and I want you to take a moment to read the lyrics before you hear Amy sing. And this is all about why a robin's breast is red. And it's because the robin plucked thorns from the brow of Jesus. And when the blood came out, it stained the front of the robin. It's a beautiful, beautiful song, and I hope that you will give it your closest attention. Go now in grace and peace. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And may the peace of Christ be with you.